All right, my name is Emma Watkins, and I'm going to be presenting on Down syndrome and the genetics behind it. So today we're going to be talking about the basic science, what chromosome is located on, and what gene is expressed in this genetic disorder. We're also going to be talking about the pathology and prognosis, the symptoms, who is affected, the life expectancy, and the quality of life of individuals that have Down syndrome. And we're also going to be talking about the genetic medicine and if Down syndrome is treatable or what treatment options are available. So the basic science of Down syndrome. Down syndrome is a genetic disease located on the 21st chromosome. It is often referred to as trisomy 21, and every 700 babies in the United States are born with Down syndrome. 6,000 babies are actually born with Down syndrome in the United States each year. Down syndrome is usually caused by an error in cell division called non-disjunction. Non-disjunction results in an embryo with 3 copies of chromosome 21 instead of the usual 2 copies. Prior or to at conception, a pair of the 21st chromosome in either the sperm or the egg usually fails to separate as the embryo develops. The extra chromosome is replicated in every cell of the body, and this accounts for 95% of the cases of Down syndrome, and it's called trisomy 21. Mosaicism is also another type of Down syndrome, and it's diagnosed when there's a mixture of 2 types of cells, one containing the usual 46 chromosomes, and some contain 47 chromosomes. The cells with 47 chromosomes contain an extra chromosome on the 21st pair. This is the least common type of Down syndrome, so it's actually pretty rare. It accounts for about less than 1% of the cases of Down syndrome, and research has actually indicated that individuals with this type of Down syndrome have fewer characteristics of Down syndrome. However, broad generalizations are not possible due to a wide range of abilities that people with Down syndrome possess, and especially because there are such a limited amount of people that have this type. We also have a third type of Down syndrome, which is translocation, which accounts for about 4% of Down syndrome cases. The total number of chromosomes in the cell remains 46. However, an additional full or partial chromosome 21 attaches to another chromosome, usually chromosome 14. The presence of the extra full or partial chromosome 21 causes the characteristics of Down syndrome. Individuals with Down syndrome have specific visual features that distinguish them, including low muscle tone, upward slanted eyes, a flat, round face with small nose, mouth, and ears, and a small arched palate. Down syndrome also causes health problems in some, including congenital heart disease, intestinal blockage, and an umbilical hernia. These are common symptoms of Down syndrome, but it looks different on a case-to-case basis. It is shown that those with Down syndrome have slower development of low motor skills. Up to 75% of individuals have hearing loss, and 60% have some type of visual impairment. Heredity is not considered a factor when we're looking at Down syndrome because of the unlikelihood. Some individuals are more likely to have a child with Down syndrome than others. The mother's age is not linked, but age can play a factor in increased risk of having a second child with Down syndrome if you already had your first child with Down syndrome, going up to a 1 in 100 chance until the age of 40. Cases are sporadic, but as I said, some parents are at a predisposition to have a child with Down syndrome. In 1/3 of the cases, one parent is a carrier of the translocated chromosomes. The risk of translocation reoccurrence is 3% if the father is a carrier and 10 to 15% if the mother is a carrier. So the prognosis of Down syndrome, life expectancy has actually gone up to 60 years in the past 40 years due to the end of the inhumane practice of institutionalizing people with Down syndrome. Most people are affected at a moderate rate of cognitive impairment, but there have been laws passed to allow individuals affected to lead a normal life. By law in the United States, appropriate and free public education is required to be offered for those with Down syndrome, and this has led to an increased number of people living independently and a small but growing number of people are even getting married and living together. There are even programs like the Roundup Fellowship in Colorado, a nonprofit organization providing programs and services for people with autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, and similar intellectual and developmental disabilities. So for the genetic medicine of Down syndrome, there is no genetic medicine with Down syndrome right now because it is actually not treatable. But the goal of treatment that we have right now is to address the variety of health issues, medical conditions, and physical, developmental, and intellectual challenges that people with Down syndrome may have. Therapies are very helpful in addressing the physical, developmental, and intellectual challenges individuals may be facing. So one type of therapy is physical therapy. Most babies with Down syndrome have hypotonia or low muscle tone that can slow their physical development. Down syndrome causes low muscle tone, and physical therapy can actually help with them with their daily functioning. We also have speech therapy. Children with Down syndrome often have small mouths and slightly enlarged tongues, causing issues when trying to communicate. Paired with low muscle tone, it can be really challenging for them to communicate with people on a regular basis. So speech therapy is very helpful for them to lead a normal life. Occupational therapy is a type of therapy that helps them develop skills. They'll need to be as independent as possible. This can include a large range of activities from learning to pick up and let go of objects so they are able to be self-sufficient and complete daily tasks. For example, according to the National Down Syndrome Society, around 10% of people with the disorder are born with a thyroid problem or develop one later in life. This is when the thyroid gland doesn't produce enough hormone called thyroxine. People with this disorder are usually at a disadvantage and can actually be given a synthetic hormone. So that goes into our medication. We have thyroid complications. We also have depression and Alzheimer's because people with Down syndrome have an increased risk of conditions that would lead to depression in the earlier parts of their lives. So there are also certain birth defects that are common in babies with Down syndrome, which is why the third type of genetic medicine that I've listed is surgeries. One of these is atrioventricular septal defect, or AVSD. This is when there's a hole in the heart and it interferes with normal blood flow. And AVSD is treated surgically by patching the hole and, if necessary, repairing any valves in the heart that may not close up completely. So we have different therapies that will help them lead a normal and be more self-sufficient. We have medication for onset difficulties that they may have just because of this genetic condition, and surgeries in case there are any physical problems that can be fixed. So thank you for listening to my presentation on Down syndrome.